So I'll call us to order, and then I guess we better do attendance, should we not?
Thank you, Warden. I have all members of council sitting as the shareholder in attendance. We do have a few alternates in attendance as well. We have regrets from Councillor Bell with alternate Councillor Snutch in attendance. Regrets from Deputy Warden Coughlin with alternate Councillor Moore in attendance. Regrets from Councillor Michael Smith with alternate Councillor Sonder in attendance. And finally, regrets from Councillor McDonald. Otherwise, you have your quorum.
Thank you. So I'll look for approval of the agenda. A motion moved by Councillor Fryer, second by Councillor Sandu, Raj. That the agenda for the June 27, 2023 meeting of the shareholder of the Simcoe County Housing Corporation be approved. Any questions on the agenda? All in favor? That is carried. Do I have a disclosure of pecuniary interest by any member of council? Not seeing any. So adoption of the previous minutes. Could I have a mover for the previous minutes? Councillor Anderson, second by Councillor Fowler. That the minutes of the meeting of the shareholder of Simcoe County Housing Corporation held June 14, 2022 be adopted. Any questions on those minutes? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And matters for consideration, the first one, that the officials named in Schedule 1 to item HCB 2023-167 be appointed as directors to the SCHC, Social Housing, and that Baker Tilly KDN LLP be appointed as the auditors for the SCHC, and that the 2023 budget of the SCHC be approved by the County of Simcoe, attached as Schedule 2 to item HCB 2023-167 be approved, and that the actions undertaken in the 2022 by the SCHC Board of Directors be ratified. Could I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Smith, second by Councillor Rawson. Any questions on that? All in favor? That is carried. Always different when you see different names on there that are no longer on County Council. So lastly, that the June 27, 2023 meeting of the shareholders of Simcoe County Housing Corporation be adjourned at 9:00, well, if I wait about 8 seconds, I'll say 9:04. Moved by Councillor Measure, second by Councillor Evans. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. So now, if you'll join me for our national anthem, and we can roll into our council meeting.
Please rise if able.
Join me in a moment of quiet contemplation. Okay, thank you. So it is a combined, so the city reps, you might as well stay in your seats. I know you can't participate in the council meeting, but we'll be rolling right into the committee of the whole shortly. I guess I shouldn't jinx it that way by saying shortly, should I? So again, I'd look for a roll call.
Thank you, Warden. Attendance remains the same with regrets from Councillor Bell, Deputy Warden Coughlin, Councillor Michael Smith, and Councillor McDonald, with alternate Councillor Snutch, alternate Councillor Moore, and alternate Councillor Sonder in attendance. You have your quorum.
Thank you. Does anybody have to leave early today? Oh, lots. Councillor Dolan.
Thank you. I have to leave for about an hour and a half at 11:45, and I'll be back for the strap plan.
Okay, perfect. Councillor Cox.
I have to leave just after 2.
Okay. Oh, we'll be all wrapped up by then, won't we, folks? Any others? Okay, then I'll look for approval of the agenda. Councillor Dolan.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Norcross that the agenda for the June 27th, 2023 meeting of County Council be approved.
Everybody heard the motion. Any questions? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Do I have a disclosure of pecuniary interest by any member of council on the council agenda? Not seeing any. So we have no presentations or deputations, so I'll call on Councillor Burkett for the consent agenda.
Morning, Your Worship. Through you, moved by myself, second by Councillor Norcross, that the Council communications and proclamations June the 13th, 2023 to June the 26th, 2023, having given due consideration, be received.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? All in favor? That is carried. Next, adoption of the council minutes and confirmation of the committee report. So I'll go to Councillor Cox.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Dolan that the following council minutes be confirmed and adopted and the Committee of the Whole reports be confirmed. County Council minutes, June 13th, 2023. Committee of the Whole report, June 13th, 2023. Strategic Planning Session, Special Council minutes, June 13th, 2023.
Any questions on any of those minutes? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And now the presentations and considerations of the Committee of the Whole reports. So Chairman Cox again, please.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Evans that the performance management recommendations contained within the Committee of the Whole report dated June 13th be approved.
Anybody feel the need to pull any of the reports? Then all in favor? That is carried. And now Chair Leduc for Human Services.
Thank you, Warden. Through you, we're at 9.2, Committee of the Whole Report, Human Services. Can I get a move and a seconder to put the consent agenda on the floor? So by Councillor Van Stavern, seconded by Councillor McClellan. That the Human Service recommendation contained within the Committee of the Whole report dated June 13th, 2023 be approved.
On that report, any comments, items to be pulled? No. Then all in favor? That is carried. And lastly, Corporate Services, Chair Dolan.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Measures that the Corporate Services recommendations contained within the Committee of the Whole report dated June 13th, 2023 be approved with the exception of the delegated authority item.
On that agenda, any items to be pulled? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. So the presentations and consideration of special committee reports, we have none. Presentation of county officers reports, we have none. No notices of motion and no motions which were previously given notice. So now we can resolve in the Committee of the Whole. So I'd look for a mover and a seconder that County Council recess into the Committee of the Whole at 9:10. Moved by alternate Councillor Snutch, second by Councillor Norris. Yeah, I wasn't going to let you be here, Dave, and not get you on the record. I'll be eyeing up some of the other alternates as well. So all in favor? That is carried. So again, I have to do the roll call, Mr. Clerk. I think, we've got our Barrie reps have just come in.
Thank you, Warden. In addition to the attendance taken at the beginning of council here, looking to the city representatives, we have Aurelia Councillor Durnford in attendance, Aurelia Councillor Fallis, Councillor Hamilton from Barrie is absent. Aurelia Mayor McIsaac is present, Barrie Councillor Negussi is present, Barrie Mayor Nuttall is present, and Barrie Councillor Riepma is present. Thank you.
Thank you. And now I'll look for approval of the agenda. Councillor Dolan.
Thank you. Could I ask for a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Locke, seconded by alternate Councillor Moore, that the agenda for June 27, 2023 meeting of Committee of the Whole be approved.
All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Do I have a disclosure of pecuniary interest by any member of council on the Committee of the Whole? Not seeing any. So presentations and delegations, and yes, we do. We have Dr. Charles Gardner here, the Medical Officer of Health, and Marie Kungle, Soldiers Memorial SMDHU Board Chair. Sorry, I didn't know what all the acronym was. And Scott Warnock. Scotty's here as well. Scott Warnock from the SMDHU Board Vice Chair. So come on down, folks. Look forward to seeing you. Great to see you back in here, Scotty. And Charles, Doctor, welcome to see you again. It's been quite a while. Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit. Thank you. When they throw them down here, it's like. Dr. Gardner, it's been a long time since the Food and Ag Charter that we sat in the boardroom, so welcome. So whenever you're ready. Yes, absolutely.
Good morning. I'm Anne-Marie Kungle. As Warden mentioned, have the great privilege of being the current chair of the Board of Health. And it's our pleasure to be presenting a little bit of our mandate to you and give you a bit of an update. And I do want to share on behalf of the board with members in the room and with my vice chair, Scott Warnock, our pleasure to be here today, but also to express our gratitude to Simcoe County Council, to yourselves and all members of current and past members who supported the health unit efforts through the height of the pandemic. So it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Gardner, our Chief Medical Officer of Health, who will take you through a bit of the update.
Thank you, Your Worship, and esteemed council members. This is an opportunity for us from the Health Unit to connect in person with council and to provide an update and an overview, and something that routinely we've done following each election. It's taken a while to get here, but we do appreciate the opportunity. So today is an overview, basically, of public health services, the status of the Health Unit, and something of its direction. So the Board of Health met last Wednesday and just approved a new strategic plan that will be circulated to our partners in the community, including our municipalities. Its vision had not changed: healthy people, healthy places. And its mission remains the same. With our communities, we prevent disease and injury and promote and protect health for all in Simcoe Muskoka. It otherwise replaces a recovery plan that we've had underway for the last 2 years, and I will be getting into some detail at a high level about that later in the presentation. Of course, we do want to acknowledge the participation on our Board of Health of 4 of Simcoe County Council members: Bill Gordon, James Leduc, Barry Norris, and Ted Walker, and also an acknowledgement to those who've been with us, Lynn Dolan in the past on the Board of Health as well. So always very much appreciated the support that we get as staff from our board and its contributing members from our 4 obligated municipalities, including Simcoe County. So public health is an entity that prevents disease, working with the population as a whole. And that works out in many, many ways, many, many programs. So certainly through the pandemic, we became very high profile in response to that emergency, that health emergency, that infectious communicable disease, vaccine preventable disease. That's certainly a big part of our mandate, vaccination in response to outbreaks and a response to emergencies. And we work very closely with municipalities on a number of the programs that we provide, including general community emergency response, emergency preparedness, whether it be adverse weather events, tornadoes, or like the pandemic, a communicable disease outbreak. But there are many, many other ways to prevent disease, and they play out within the province's Ontario Public Health Standards, which are supported by the Health Protection and Promotion Act, the act that designates that there will be health units and governed by boards of health. So you get a sense of the way that plays out. Most people in our society die from chronic diseases, and so we have programs directed at the prevention of chronic disease, whether it's addressing substance use, such as tobacco use, and enforcing the Smoke-Free Ontario Act, or working with municipalities on creating more walkable environments for people in the community, safer environments from injuries, or working with school boards with regards to healthy nutrition in schools. Many, many, many ways in which we work to prevent chronic disease. And we have an environmental health program that addresses, most recently, air quality as an issue, advisories to the public, but more routinely food safety inspection of restaurants and other food premises, safe drinking water programs, so certainly responding to any adverse water findings for municipal water supply, but also regulating small drinking water systems. The testing and advisories with regards to public swimming areas and beaches, working with summer camps. So Simcoe, Muskoka, we have perhaps a third of the camps, summer camps in the province, by far the most of any single health unit. That's a big part of our mandate, and I think that would be a sort of thing that would overlap with municipalities. Child and reproductive health, Healthy Babies, Healthy Children program, home visitation for at-risk families. Well baby and pregnancy supports for the community. And of course, surveillance, monitoring, reporting of the health status of the community. So that's it in words, and this would be something of it in pictures. You can see that there's a lot of partner engagement with this work. There's working with many other community groups to fulfill the mandate, not wanting to duplicate, wanting to be efficient in what we do together. And a lot of media work. Certainly for me, I did a tremendous amount of media work through the course of the pandemic, but normally many of us on many topics at the health unit do a lot of media and social media work. So we're at the tail end, coming out of, touching wood, the most severe pandemic of the century. And very sadly, we've lost over 16,000 people in this province from the pandemic. But according to the Chief Medical Officer of Health's report on the pandemic, if we'd not all of us worked together and did all that we did, we probably would have had 20 times that mortality. So preventing basically 95% of the mortality that would have occurred with all that we did, whether it was a vaccination or the infection control measures, the general advisory to the public, and the response to outbreaks, particularly in long-term care facilities. So in Simcoe, Muskoka, we've had over 700 deaths. Even in 2022, there was a very large amount of death happening at that point. The third year into the pandemic, we had more mortality in that year than the preceding 2 years. So the Omicron wave, despite any media characterization of it, was actually very severe. And it's only now that we're getting ourselves, since early May, at a low level of transmission, what we call lower according to our rating system. So it's certainly a blessing to have it down to that level, but it's been actually quite recent that that's been the case. So we had many roles to play in as a health unit in this. We had certainly the surveillance and reporting to the public of the kind of numbers I've just cited, and that was dependent on cases being reported to us and outbreaks. We had over 1,000 outbreaks through the course of the pandemic in congregate settings, long-term care facilities, totally off the scale from what we would normally have from, say, influenza in normal years. And with all of our partners, including municipalities, and hospitals, pharmacies, primary care, our First Nations communities, we managed to vaccinate 80% of the population, over 1.5 million doses, absolutely historic effort. That was part of that 95% reduction in mortality that we achieved, a very big part of it. The public health measures, I think, were the most difficult with regards to capacity limits and closures and school closures, and a tremendous amount of media work, engagement with partners, engagement on a regular basis with the CAOs of the municipalities in Simcoe, Muskoka, and other groups. And we had to maintain some of our normal programming. The great majority of our staff and resources were redeployed in the response, but we had to do certain things. Certain things simply couldn't stop. Responding to animal bites for the potential of rabies transmission would be an example of that, or continuing to respond to the opioid crisis. So we've had this recovery framework for 2 years. It's been a challenge to actually get underway with recovery. It's only been since the January of this year that we've managed to get our staff back to their normal programming. This framework is actually being replaced as of last Wednesday with our strategic plan. So as I said, there'll be circulated notice on that in the very near future with that plan. But it is based on or builds on the recovery framework and has a focus on program recovery, people recovery, partnership recovery, renewal, and looking to the future, looking at the resources that we will need, the Board of Health making the case for the resources that we would need, in particular to the province. So just a little bit of highlight of some of the things that are underway for recovery. Immunization, while we were doing the 1.55 million doses of COVID vaccination, schools were often closed. It was not possible to keep up with routine immunizations. They've had quite a dramatic reduction. Normally, we were at a very high level of coverage in the child population, and we have a big job now underway to catch up with that. The very last thing we would want is an outbreak of, say, measles or some other pertussis, another vaccine-preventable disease. So that will take us time, I think, well into next year to achieve. Very much underway at this time, though. The opioid crisis became worse through the course of the pandemic, as you can see from this graph that shows Ontario on the bottom, Simcoe, Muskoka in the blue in the middle, and the city of Barrie at the top. It appears to be having some recovery, and there was a notice that was posted on Health Canada's website of the Chief Public Health Officer making the same observation, that there appears to be some recovery, but still very, very marked. And so we have to continue with our opioid strategy that's been in place for the past 5 years. Multi-sector, multi-pronged strategy. Indigenous engagement has been a priority of the Board of Health for a number of years now, and certainly through the pandemic that was very important. That could have been a vulnerable population for the pandemic, and by working closely with our Indigenous partners in the 4 First Nations communities and also in urban settings, we were able to keep up a high level of immunization. So the picture in the middle shows us being, as a health unit, recognized for this. Among the people there is Jermaine Trudeau-Elliott, who is one of the directors for Mamaway First Nations Primary Care Services, and Dr. Lisa Simon, Associate Medical Officer of Health, who is the lead for us on this particular front. And both of them presented in February at the Ontario Public Health Convention about our approach and what we achieved. So we, the Board of Health, is accountable to our communities, putting out annual reports. At Wednesday's meeting, the board received the 2022 annual report, and so a notice is coming out shortly from our board chair, linking to that report as well, so you'll see that as well, coming out at the same time as our new strat plan. What we have here is the financials from 2021. Through the course of the pandemic, the province provided a very large increase in our funding in order to enable us to do the response. At one point, we had doubled our staffing size with temporary staff to primarily do the immunization program, along with some 800 volunteers in that response. So the 4 obligated municipalities, including Simcoe County, provide levy funding to the budget for the year, and as part of accountability, we report back on what that is. And you'll see that although it's gone up in percentages of 5% or 4% from the previous year, as a per capita cost, it's actually gone down in keeping with the findings of impact data. So in closing, the Simcoe-Muskoka District Health Unit is committed to working with our communities for excellence in public health services. Municipalities greatly impact on the determinants of health and people's health with the services that you provide, as well as your support to public health. COVID has been the most severe pandemic of the century, and we are presently recovering to our full mandate. I'd be happy to take any questions or comments from council.
Maybe I'll ask the first one. How did we do this year on the, I can't believe I'm calling it the plain old flu shot? Because I know during COVID, everybody was focused, get your vaccine. But of course, the flu is very deadly to many people in our population. So how did we do? Are we starting to bounce back on the annual flu shots?
Thank you, Your Worship, for that question. I think we've experienced some degree of vaccination fatigue. After all, there's some people in the community for whom this would be their 6th dose of COVID at this time, and then in the fall we anticipate another round of recommendation and offer of vaccination to the public for those who haven't had it in the previous 6 months or more. And so with that, there was perhaps some reduction in the uptake of influenza vaccination last year, even though it was heavily promoted. We'll see what comes in the fall. We did have a resurgence of influenza and RSV, as well as other respiratory viruses last winter. Fortunately, that didn't have a huge impact on outbreaks in long-term care facilities where we get the most vulnerable, and that would probably be due to the ongoing increased infection prevention and control that remains in place because of COVID-19. But I think there was, on the whole, a little bit of a reduction in willingness for vaccination for influenza. We'll do what we can to promote it, COVID and other vaccinations going forward.
Thank you. Any other questions from Dr. Gardner? Councillor Dolan.
Thank you, Worship. Not a question as much as a comment. So I spent 8 years on the Board of Health. And being on the Board of Health during a global pandemic is not for the faint of heart, but particularly appreciated the very calm and confident leadership that Dr. Gardner and the senior leaders at SMDHU provided to us. And I have to tell you, through some pretty significant personal threats from people, and we were quite concerned. It's always the messenger that gets the brunt of it, but all throughout that, just calm and a steady hand on the wheel throughout it. And I know I feel very confident that had we not had that, we would have been in much worse shape. So thank you so much.
And
I do thank you, Councillor Dolan.
well said. It wasn't a position that any one of us envied where you were at. I'm sure you got many, including a few aggressive emails from myself as the mayor of a small community during some of the lockdowns, but you stood strong. You did a great job, and thank you for that, Doctor. Any other comments from the floor? Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Your Worship. First of all, thank you, Dr. Gardner, and to your team for the great work that you always do in our communities. We truly appreciate it. But not more than a comment, a question. We're facing another pandemic, and that's homelessness and mental health, which I think often plays a role together. Can you comment on what it is that the Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit is doing or looking at doing in order to help with the homelessness issues and the mental health issues that are around that?
Through you, Your Worship, thank you very much for the question. The Board of Health received a report 2 months ago with regards to food affordability that also covered housing affordability, making the case that those who are of lowest income, those on income support, simply can't afford to eat well and be housed. That they are food insecure, that they're housing insecure, and of course this has been made worse with increasing prices on both fronts. And there were a number of advocacy positions that the board supported for use by staff and also the board itself, basically making the case for additional financial supports for those who are most vulnerable. Actually at the last Board of Health meeting, there was a request that the issue of housing itself come back to the board for their September meeting to look at what further understanding of the topic and the potential for positions that the Board of Health could take. Much of what we do in public health is fulfilled through the Board of Health in its advocacy work. So there's direct program delivery, there's a provision of information, such as the information the board received about affordability, and at times there's advocacy to different levels of government when we don't have when the board or the health unit staff don't have direct control over an issue such as the affordability of housing.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Coghlan.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, through you. Dr. Gardner, will be an increase of population in the next 10 years, and basically adapting and adjusting to the growth. Are there plans for adapting to the needs of the community if it grows? And what's the future in the plans, like an MRI, like Aurelia just received? There's plans for Midland also, but in terms of growth, is there any plans to accommodate that population?
Yes, go ahead, Doctor.
Through Your Worship, thank you for the question. I just wanted to clarify the question. I'm certainly well aware that there's a tremendous amount of growth in the country, and it extends to Simcoe, Muskoka, and that for basically since 2006, the health unit has been well engaged with our municipalities about planning. It's been a healthy community design has been a priority of the health unit for many years, and the health unit has put out guidelines developed in part from support from the Ontario Professional Planners Institute about what constitutes design for communities, build of communities that would support the needs of the population to basically be compact, complete, and connected, walkable, good public transit, to be more fostering of walking and other more means of active transportation, public transit, access to community services, ready access from housing locations to where people work or attend education. So that's been something that we worked on for many years. Through the course of the pandemic, that was one of the things that we had to stop. And so it's a part of our renewal that we reconnect on that front as well. I thought I would just ask yourself, sir, if I'm in fact addressing your question, or am I getting to the mark, or am I actually off from what you're raising?
No, I think you're going in the right direction. I just was more concerned just meeting the needs of the population growth, and basically we're looking at I guess a benchmark now, but in the future, if there is a growth, what are the shortfalls, I guess, basically in terms of meeting the needs of that population growth?
Yeah, thank you for that clarification. And the work we've done with municipalities advising and commenting on official plans, when we've been invited, participating in strategic planning or with planning with regards to the older population's needs or child needs. We do a lot of that kind of engagement work with municipalities as they plan. Once again, this is a role of support for another sector. Municipalities actually have leadership on the topic. We provide what support we can.
Okay. Councillor Dolan.
Thank you. Just to add that the provincial funding for health units has been frozen for many, many years, which has, you know, when you're in a growth municipality, municipalities like we are, so really frozen funding is funding going down as our population goes up, and that's certainly an advocacy point that we can all take to the Minister of Health.
Okay. Barry, Mayor Nuttall, sorry.
Thank you, Warden. Just to follow up on Mayor Dolan there, is there any coordination that's taking place between the county and the health unit when it comes to homeless prevention? I mean, we just heard in the presentation and answers to the question with regards to Dr. Gardner and the health units, both advocacy and work for those who are most vulnerable in our communities. We just had an 86% increase in our funding for homelessness prevention to the county. And so it would make sense that the agency or agencies that are doing that work on the governmental level, not just the agencies that are charitable organizations, would be at the table on that. So I guess my question through Mr. Warden to staff is are those conversations taking place, and do we see alignment in the items that the health unit's advocating on?
So I'll direct that to our director, Faze Baguette, if you want to handle that one. Mina?
Through you, Your Worship, thank you for the question, Councillor Nuttall. The short answer is yes. As you may be aware, we're working on our 10-year affordable housing and homelessness prevention strategy, and that strategy takes on a comprehensive engagement of all of our community partners, members, as well as our municipal partners and members. So we'll be working closely with the sector, including our public health partners, as well as in terms of the investment, the 86%, part of our 10-point plan has a specific investment in homelessness prevention, primarily focused on housing retention and trying to avoid evictions, as well as supporting people who may be housed but right on the threshold of facing an eviction or being at risk of becoming homeless for other economic or health reasons. So that's all part of kind of a strategy that's well aligned, I would believe, with this presentation and the work of public health. And you know, we continue to look forward to it as we begin our winter planning into our kind of our emergency shelter response as well.
Any other questions? Councillor Leduc.
Thank you, Warden. Through. It's not a question. I just wanted to say thank you to Dr. Gardner and Chair Kungle and Vice Chair Warnock and others, Anita DeBow and others that helped us come onto this board. I'm new on the board, and it is a moving board. When you get to those meetings, there is nothing but threats on there all the time when you're dealing with all sorts of issues with the public health. So I want to thank the board for helping us transition to that, because it can be overwhelming, and it's wonderful to see some great people on there that have been there for a while helping us through that. So I really have full faith in Dr. Gardner and the board and his staff on how they deliver public health through our community. And it's like Councillor Dolan said, the funding has been frozen for a while, and we're still managing to deliver some of those programs that Dr. Gardner showed on the board. So thank you and congratulations. Thanks.
Very much appreciated, Councillor Leduc, and certainly a pleasure to have you on the board.
Any other comments or questions? Yes, Councillor Snell.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Dr. Gardner, for your presentation. I've had conversations recently with our fire chief in Wasaga Beach around the naloxone kits, and in sort of response to that epidemic that all of our communities are facing. And I understand that in the very near future, in the next coming weeks, it'll be rolling out where the kits will be provided and available on our fire trucks as well as our fire halls, so that when they're going out to respond to emergency situations, they're able to provide training to family and loved ones of the addict, and also provide them a kit so that should another situation occur, that they're prepared. So just two questions. is there a plan, or was it identified in your strategic planning to roll that out across the county and to get those kits in more frontline, first-hand, boots-on-the-ground responders? And secondly, has it been identified to develop an aggressive marketing plan that really helps to educate the public on where these kits are available and that they are available to be more preventative? Thank you.
Go ahead, Doctor.
Thank you, through your worship, for that question. My commendations to all who are stepping forward to provide kits, be trained, have available, reach out to the public, fire departments such as your own. As a health unit, we're looking at what more we can do with our own offices, staff, etc. We're seeing more incidents even impacting on our own premises. As it indicated, this is an issue that was severe and became worse, and the pandemic is showing some signs of improvement, but still severe. Certainly public awareness is part of the overall strategy. What I would like to do is inquire with my staff who are leads on this to get back to the county, get back to yourselves with regards to some of the details of the questions you asked, if I could.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Well, more positive comments than there were questions, so that's always good news. So again, I want to thank you, Dr. Charles Gardner, Anne-Marie Kungle, and Scotty Warnock. Hey, it only took me how many years to get your name right, Scotty? I called him Warnock for the first 8 years I sat here with him. So thank you for the presentation.
Warden, may I impose on you for just a minute, because I think it would be remiss not to leave a final comment about staff. And so while the presentation by Dr. Gardner did cover the breadth of our mandate and did touch on, as Mayor Dolan talked about, the impact of COVID, and when we I believe it was Mr. Bishop asked a bit about housing and mental health and other aspects, I find it's quite hopeful to see what staff through the County of Simcoe are proposing forward. We saw their strength through the pandemic. They led with innovation around making sure our most vulnerable in shelters and housing, the redeployment of paramedics. So I believe all those efficiencies and learnings and creative solutions that kept us safe, especially the most vulnerable, will continue to be leveraged. And I do want to compliment CEO Aiken and the team, but also the portfolios of your GMs are quite substantial, and they've handled very complex situations with grace and tenacity. So thank you.
Thank you for those comments, and I know staff certainly appreciate it as well. Yes, they did an outstanding job, as yourselves. Okay, thank you. Okay, so back to our committee of the whole, and we will go to performance management and archives. Councillor or Chair Cox, I believe, is where we're at.
19.1, Simcoe County Archives. May I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Fowler, Councillor Rawson. Recommendation that item CCW 2023-180 dated June 27th, 2023 regarding Simcoe County Archives operation in May 2023 be received. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Human Services with Chair Leduc.
Thank you, Warden. We're at section 20, the consent agenda. So I have two items on the consent agenda: employment services transformation and the Huron guest home update. So the integrated seamless employment services and an update on the guest house for the poor living conditions that were there. Anybody want to pull these for comments? Seeing none. So can I have a mover with, Councillor Rawson and Councillor LaRose? Are you okay with that? Moving? Second? Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. We are into section 21, Human Services Community Services. We have section 21.1. I have CCW 2023-182-24 Social and Community Investment Fund Update. Questions or concerns with this report? Councillor Fowler, thank you.
Thank you, Chair Leduc. I'm reading the report, and it's actually very high-level language, but it makes references on one of the pages. The renewed application process requires agencies to develop programming based on one or more key areas: dignity, inclusion, and resiliency and security. Are these programs being run in-house, or are they being tendered out to other services?
General Manager, Enoch, do you have a reply to that?
Through you, Chair Leduc, thank you for the question, Councillor Fowler. Yes, this grant program is for third-party agencies to apply and access funding to deliver the services. I'll also allow our manager, Sandy Lee, to answer specifics on what other programs are funded through this.
Follow-up?
Okay, that being the case, will we get greater detail about the processes and the people that put in the tender and what their processes are in regards to this, please?
Through you, Chair Leduc, I'm going to ask Manager Sandy Lee just to give specifics to that, the process and the timelines.
Thank you, and through you, Your Worship. The Social Community Investment Fund has had an annual application process for over a decade, and this particular committee report is designed to help County Council understand some changes that we're making as far as aligning it with the Canadian Poverty Reduction Strategy. We also reviewed the Canadian Safety Wellbeing Plans. We recently hosted a webinar for community stakeholders because we wanted to widen the breadth of people who knew about the funding application. It goes live on July 10th, and the application process closes on the 24th. Similar to past years, we will provide recommendations back to County Council in the fall on recommendations through that application process like we have in past years.
All good? Okay, thank you. So any further questions or comments on this report? Can I have a mover then? Councillor Fowler moving it, seconded by Councillor Anderson. All right. So the report is recommendation that item CCW 2023-182 dated June 27, 2023 regarding planning for the Social and Community Investment Fund, the SCIF, be received, and that the Warden and County Clerk execute the 2024 Social and Community Investment Fund agreement for a 2-year term where merited. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. We're on to 21.2, CCW 2023-183, 211 County of Simcoe Agreement for 2023. Questions or concerns? Seeing none, can I get moved by Councillor Fallis, seconded by Councillor Ritma? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. We're into 22, Human Services Long-Term Care Committee of Management. So I have 22.1, Age-Friendly Initiative Update. So it's CCW 2023-091. Question concerns with this one? It's a great report. It has a bigger uptake now. So, okay. So I'm going to get it moved by Alternate Councillor Anita Moore and seconded by Councillor Sandu. And the recommendation is that item CCW 2023-091 dated June 27, 2023 regarding an age-friendly initiative update be received. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. We're into 22.2. It's a Simcoe Village Campus Project Update. Questions or concerns with this report? A very extensive report. We see our costs are escalating. Seeing none. Okay, can I get it moved by Councillor Norcross, seconded by Councillor Cabral? That recommendation that item CCW 2022-173 dated June 27, 2023 regarding Simcoe Village Campus Project Update be received, and that staff continue with the project working within the revised budget as recommended in CCW 2023-173, and that the contingency fund for potential inflationary impacts be included within the 2024 budget, and that the Warden and County Clerk execute all documents required to further the project's progress. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. We're into 22.3, the Annual Reconciliation Report for Community Programs. Questions or concerns with this one? Seeing none, so I will ask for alternate councillor, and I can't see, I'm sorry, what is it? Snutch. Thank you. And beside him, I have Councillor Norris. Thank you. And the recommendation is that item CCW 2023-184 dated June 27, 2023 regarding the 22-23 Annual Reconciliation Report for Community Programs be received, and the warden and county clerk execute the 2022-23 annual reconciliation report for the corporation of the county of Simcoe community programs as required by the multi-sector service accountability agreement, substantially in the form attached to Schedule 1 to item CCW 2023-184. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Moving right along to 22.4, the long-term care funding updates for 2023-24. Questions or concerns with this report? Seeing none, may I get a mover from Mr. Councillor Lavoie, and moved by and also seconded by Councillor Gordon. It's okay. Thank you. So that item CCW 2023-190 dated June 27, 2023 regarding long-term care funding updates for 23-24 be received, and that the new provincial base funding be allocated to increase staffing in each respective long-term care home as outlined in the subject item. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. We are into 22.5, CCW 2023-186, Health and Emergency Services Performance Reporting Framework. Questions or concerns with this report? Seeing none, may I ask Councillor Measures to move, seconded by Councillor Burkett. Okay, thank you. Recommendation that item CCW 2023-186, dated June 27, 2023, regarding the Health and Emergency Service Performance Reporting Framework be received. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Human Services Emergency Management Section, Section 23. I have CCW 2023-189, County of Simcoe Hazardous Materials Agreement Update. Okay, questions by Councillor Fowler.
Thank you. In the report, there was mention that Barrie pulled out of this agreement. My understanding was more political. Does that have any effect on the service coverage in the area if we are requiring such service and such support?
GM Sinclair.
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you for the question. The City of Barrie Fire and Emergency Services provided one component of the hazmat program, which was the technician level service. They are still providing that level of service to municipalities that wish that level of service, but they're doing so directly rather than through the combined memorandum of understanding. So, our understanding from staff from fire services is they already had in place another type of agreement that offered a suite of different types of services to fire services across the county, and so they included the technician level as part of a pre-existing agreement. Our understanding going forward, fire services, our partner fire services, want to continue with our partnership. We provide a number of different pieces of equipment, large decontamination tent, etc. We have a very good partnership in terms of response with our paramedic services. We also, have been involved with the Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit in the development of this program. So we've removed that component, and it's up to each local fire service to source that technician level should they require it during a hazmat at this point. There is another arrangement as well. The City of Orillia and a number of county municipalities are also offering a technician level. I think Ramera specifically and City of Orillia have that level of technician, so they can provide that support to some of the local municipalities in that area as well.
Good. Any further questions or comments? Yes, Councillor Hamlin.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I was just wondering, I had realized quite recently that at a meeting with our fire services department that we had a contract with Barrie for hazmat assistance, as you were describing, I guess. To what, and I was trying to listen carefully, but I hadn't even realized there was a county component to this. I just thought this is where the services were. So is there an overlap then between what Barrie offers and what the county offers? Thank you. Through you, Chair.
Through you, Mr. Chair. The support that the county provides is somewhat different. As I mentioned, we have a large decontamination tent. We have some hazmat gear, suits specifically, and in past we've provided support for education and training. So it's a different partnership, a different suite of services, so to speak, that the county does offer. And the other component, as I mentioned, any hazmat response is multifaceted. So fire would respond, paramedic services respond, police respond, depending on the nature of the incident. And so we have a partnership through our paramedic services and our emergency management program that brings in other components. So that's why in discussions with fire services, we had agreement and felt it was positive to continue with an overarching memorandum of understanding so that we can continue to provide support where needed to our local fire services in these types of incidents.
Just one follow-up, Chair, through you. So how many municipalities would be partnering with the county on the fire services side?
In past, we've had all fire services participating in the memorandum of understanding, including, prior to the City of Barrie giving notice, including Barrie and Aurelia have been longstanding partners in this MOU.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Further questions or comments? Seeing none, so can I have Councillor Hammond, would you move it? This report, and Councillor Fowler seconded? Thank you. So that I have item CCW 2023-189 dated June 27, 2023 regarding the County of Simcoe Hazardous Materials Agreement be received and that the necessary bylaw be presented to County Council to authorize the Warden and County Clerk to renew the updated County of Simcoe Hazardous Materials Agreement with all participating communities. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. We are now into Section 24, Human Services, Other Matters of Consideration. I have one under there, 2024.1, the Simcoe County Housing Corporation Board draft minutes. May I have a mover for this, please? Moved by Councillor Fowler, seconded by Councillor Carbrell. That the minutes of the Simcoe County Housing Corporation Board dated June 6, 2023 be received. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. I turn it back to you, Warden.
Thank you, Chair, and then I'll go to Chair Dolan for Corporate Services.
Thank you, Warden. We are at now item 25, which is Corporate Services Consent. There's one item, which is the County of Simcoe's Housing Attainable Supply Action Plan Project Update. Any questions or comments on that item? Could I ask for a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Fryer and Councillor Compton. That the following consent item, having been given due consideration, be received. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Next is Corporate Services Forestry, a request for exemption to remove woodlands under the Forest Conservation Bylaw. Questions or comments on this item? Seeing none, a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Locke, seconded by Councillor Evans. All those in favor? That is carried. Next item is under planning, and it's the Transportation Grant Funding Annual Update. Questions or comments on this item? Seeing none, a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Walker and Councillor Snell. All those in favor? That is carried. And other matters for consideration is the Economic Development Subcommittee report. Councillor Fowler.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to give a shout out to the county staff in regarding the new webpage that's put into place, experience.simcoe.ca. It is actually really, really well done. It's pleasing to the eye. It's easy to navigate. A lot of work went into it, so I just want to give everybody credit who put their effort and time into it. It's something worth exploring, and you can, once you get the connections underway, you can even add to it and send in local restaurants, businesses, events to even enhance it even further. So this is something worth looking at. Take 5 minutes of your day. I really would recommend it.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions or comments on this item? Seeing none, that's moved by Councillor Fowler and seconded by Councillor Norris, that the recommendation contained within the Economic Development Subcommittee report dated June 14th, 2023 be approved. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Thank you, Your Worship. Back to you.
Thank you, Chair Dolan. Now I'll appoint Chair Cox for performance management.
Hello. The first one, recommendation, we have a consent agenda, and I just wondered if anybody would like anything to speak to it. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to just speak to item 29.1, a letter received from the town of Wasaga Beach, dated June 21st, 2023, regarding the town of Wasaga Beach High School.
Okay, you can speak to it now.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So we brought this forth back in 2017 to this House, and I'm happy to say that this House unanimously supported the children of the town of Wasaga Beach towards getting a high school in our community. We're just asking that be reaffirmed by this House again this time around. So when we're speaking with the ministry and with the two different boards, that there is support behind the town of Wasaga Beach and our children for a high school. Wasaga Beach is, as you all know, is one of the fastest growing communities. At one time was the fastest growing community in the country. Currently we grow at about 20.3%, and our population is more than doubled over the last 15 years, and we anticipate that doubling almost again by 2051. We currently have about 800 students plus that are bused out of our community every single day to other schools within the county of Simcoe, and those schools where our children are bused are all over capacity at this point. We've just received funding last Friday, notice from the Simcoe County District School Board and our friends at the province that they have funded another elementary school that was approved in 2017 and just received funding today. Until that school is built, the town of Wasaga Beach is currently busing kindergarten children to other communities outside of Wasaga Beach to the tune of about 3 hours a day on a bus. Our high school students have been backfilling those other community schools for many, many years. And in 2017, not only did we receive unanimous support from this House, but we received the support of the Ministry of Education in an unprecedented letter that was written to the Simcoe County District School Board and the town of Wasaga Beach by then Minister Nadeau Harris, that started with Minister Hunter, indicating that the Simcoe County District School Board should be sitting down with our community and looking to build a high school forthwith. And that was back in 2017. We currently have more children attending high school. As I just indicated, another elementary school has now been approved for funding, and it will be built in the next year and a half or so. And I can tell you that the Simcoe County separate school board is also looking to start to consider building a second Catholic school, elementary school in Wasaga Beach, which will give us a total of 5 elementary schools and still no high school. So I ask on behalf of the folks, town of Wasaga Beach and our children, that this House please consider unanimously supporting this plea for a high school once again. Thank you.
Will we do that now?
Sure, Chair. I can put the motion
Thank
on
you.
the screen.
And I'll need a mover and a seconder. Obviously moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor, oops, sorry.
Can you put this up on the live stream?
Miskimins. Sorry, I wanted to say it right. Are there any questions or comments with this motion? Yes, Councillor Hamlin.
Thank you, Chair. It's really hard to speak against a school. It's a bit like motherhood. But I do know that the high schools in Collingwood, we have one separate board high school and our public school board. And I'm just wondering, both those schools will lose a lot of students if a high school is built in Wasaga. And I'm wondering if anyone's done any analysis whatsoever on what the effect would be on programming on both of the smaller one that would be in Wasaga and the smaller one, and I'm not sure which one would be more affected, but in Collingwood. Like, would the same specialties be able to be offered? That's my question. Thank you.
I'm not sure that anyone here can answer that question, but does anybody want to? Oh, Councillor Snell.
Thank you, Chair. Excuse me. As the former trustee for that area, I'd like to share some information. So there has been extensive studies done at CCI, because CCI is currently now the oldest school in the system, now that Banting's been funded for replacement. CCI has been identified as cost prohibitive to repair. There's so many additions that have been done to it. And the strategy is, from my understanding from that table at the school board, is that both Wasaga Beach and CCI would be submitted in and around the same time, because they both have to be built around the same time. When the Wasaga Beach students, which is 7, the numbers always change, but somewhere around 700 of the students, roughly half of the population of CCI gets pulled from there, then obviously that building would be grossly underutilized. So rather than annex a section and repurpose it, I believe the intention is to rebuild a new school on the same grounds. The other piece that I would like to speak to is just to second Councillor Smith's comments is the humanality of the impact of our students when it comes to grade 9. You know, my daughter, she graduated grade 8, and they're coming into grade 9 at their most emotionally vulnerable time. And they are coming at a time when they have all their peers, all their peeps, and they're heading into the lowest spot in the pecking order of high school. And what happens to our students, unique to any other community, is they get divided into 4 different schools as options. And so your small social group of 10 students then scatter. And so our students are at put in a vulnerable position, frankly, and I believe that this is long overdue, and I feel that the Simcoe County District School Board has a plan and a strategy in regards to not compromising programming, because the students continue to go to CCI because of that great programming, and that would still be accommodated, as far as I'm aware, in a right-sized school for both communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes,
Hi, thank you for that answer. Just as a follow-up, as sympathetic as I am to this, I'm not going to support it today. I don't feel, until I see it, that the school board has fully thought out how Collingwood High School of half the size would be able to offer the same programming. And I feel that our priorities in this house should be make sure that our children have the best chance of success in going on to their post-secondary. And I'd just like to have a lot of confidence that all the programs that are needed would be offered, and regardless of whether the children have their same friends at the same school. So reluctantly, I won't be supporting it. Thank you.
Okay, I have Councillor Measures, then Councillor Smith, then Councillor Fryer. So we'll start with Councillor Measures. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I want to acknowledge Councillor Smith, Mayor Smith. Your passion on this project has been well known and goes back many, many years. I must say, as the Mayor of Clearview Township, where we have our beautiful and wonderful Stainer Collegiate Institute, which is an amazing school because it's one of the few that actually accommodates grades 6, 7, as well as 8 in the school, has demonstrated that the school community has really embraced the fact that they are a full-featured school, offering all the programs that we possibly can in a small facility that we are. It's interesting that this does come back to our house here asking for this type of support, and I support the motion, and I will be continuing to support the motion. I would like to point out that the community of Clearview will be very, very vocal in maintaining that Stainer Collegiate maintain its status and continues to offer the programs that are available. So I also draw upon Councillor Smith's ask that this House unanimously support that, given that Programs are not something that this House can determine at the school board level. It's up to each of us as individual leaders in our communities to engage with the school board trustees and with the school board, and perhaps even to the minister, to talk about those type of programs. I think the ask is very clear from the county point of view that they are looking for the support for a community of its size, Wasaga Beach, to have its own high school. I think that it's a noble thing, and I think it'd be appropriate for this House to support it unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just with response to the question on whether or not Collingwood is sustainable or will keep its programming. What we know today is that all 3 high schools that currently house students from Wasaga Beach, Collingwood, 4 high schools, Collingwood Collegiate being the largest. We know that Wasaga Beach is a very fast-growing community, and we know that Collingwood is growing rapidly as well. And so if done properly by the boards, the Altus report that we did several years ago looked to this as well. Collingwood Collegiate is now well over capacity, and with the growth of Wasaga Beach and the growth of Collingwood and the new school being built, the capacity levels there no doubt are sustainable and will backfill those grades through 9 through 12. The other thing to note is that it's highly unlikely that high school will be completely emptied of Wasaga Beach students on day one. In other words, they're not going to build a high school in Wasaga Beach and the day it opens we take all 4 grades away from Collingwood Collegiate or Stainer or Elmville. At the end of the day, this is a very doable situation. But what's most importantly, and I respect the comment, however, I disagree that it is maybe not as important that we all go to school with our friends. The children of the town of Wasaga Beach have been split up for many, many years and used, quite frankly, to backfill schools in other communities. And it is what it is. That's no one's fault. It is what it is. But our children, I believe, deserve what every other child in this province has, and that's an opportunity to go to a high school and an elementary school within their own community, if the numbers support that, and to be able to be on sports teams, do extracurricular activities, stay after school or go before school, wear a jersey that supports their community, their town. We're not asking for anything here that any other community hasn't either had at one point or does have today. And I would say that our children are our future. And their mental stability, the stability that they have within their community, whether they come back to that community after post-secondary school, is very important. It's important to them, and it's important to communities. And so I have no doubt that Collingwood Collegiate, as well as the separate school board, the Catholic School Board, Stainer Collegiate, and Elmville High School will survive just fine without students from Wasaga Beach. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, Councillor Fryer. Okay.
Sorry, Chair, did you address me? Sorry.
Yes, I
I'm
did.
sorry, I didn't catch that.
Okay, sorry.
I was just going to say, having been a student at CCI, I've got a lot of good friends from Wasaga Beach because of that. But I recognize that Wasaga is a fast growing community, and it's been for some time that they've been in need for a high school. I have similar understandings to the situation that Councillor Snell has already spoken to, and therefore I'm going to support this motion. I'm going to go back and do some more work and just make sure that that understanding is correct. And if I feel I have a need to bring something forward to this body, I will. But I do support the Wasaga Beach request. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Dolan?
Thank you. Very sympathetic. My children also went to a grade 8 where it was divided into 4 areas, so very sympathetic to that. Having said that, I'm not going to support it only because I think that I'm stepping out of or we're stepping out of our comfort zone. We don't have the information in front of us. We don't know if we're suggesting this school gets, bumped up in the queue, what impact that has on other schools. We aren't part of the school board to know all that information, have all that information. I've always been one to kind of try to stay in my wheelhouse and work on the things that we are making the decisions about, instead of telling other governments what they should or shouldn't do. So for that reason, I'm going to not support it. Thank you.
Councillor MacDonald.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We were in the very same position as Wasaga Beach about 16 years ago. We were actually at the table with Wasaga Beach needing the school, as well as Essa Township needing the school. Very, very comparable, the numbers and everything, but it was just one was swayed over when we sat around the school board at the time. So the same questions came up. Would certain schools in Barrie or for the Alliston School, would they be able to survive? They're all surviving. And I think it's more than friendship. And I think people look at it that, they want to go with where their friends are. But it means a lot more to a community to have a high school in it. It becomes a hub, but it also allows all of the students to have a fair playing ground so they can go to after-school curriculums, because not everyone has that luxury of being able to have a parent to be able to drive them to and from somewhere. Not the greatest transportation available. And so I will definitely be supporting it, because we sat in that same seat as Wasaga Beach. And this isn't one council, just the same as it wasn't one council for us. They've been doing this for years and years, I would say 20 plus, trying to get this school there. Their numbers keep growing, and they keep passing by. So I do not believe that any school will suffer. I think that everyone will grow, and I think it's a great thing for the future, which is those students. Thank you.
Okay, Warden.
Thank you. Just one more thing I wanted to touch on that Councillor Smith mentioned, the extracurricular activities, but nobody ever seems to think of after-school jobs, and it's exceptionally difficult. A job to go to after school and the limited hours they have before homework and they have to turn in. And when you tend to bust children out of their community and pull them out of the workforce because it just isn't feasible, they tend not to come back to their community. And these are our future volunteers. These are our future employees that we struggle so much with economic development. To get people in the workforce, you certainly want to get children in that workforce as young as possible so that we don't have to educate them so much on soft skills later in life. And everybody always, skims over that one. I can't stress how important it is. I knew many children that had after-school jobs. They'd come out of school and then just run up the street to where they were working. Of course, myself being bused from Ramera to Aurelia, that wasn't possible because there's no way my parents had the time. Luckily, I was born on a dairy farm and there was never any shortage of work around home, but it is difficult when your children are out of town. They just cannot walk to that work afterwards and take part in their community. So no, I absolutely will support this. It's time Wasaga Beach had their own school. They're certainly large enough, and let's keep those children in their community. Let's keep them working in their community, and let's keep them interested in their community.
Councillor Cabral. Is it Cabral? Yeah, sorry, Councillor Cabral. Yeah,
Thank you, Chair. I wasn't sure. I've been sitting back listening a little bit, and I can certainly appreciate all of the thoughts. I also can appreciate what Chair Dolan has mentioned. It is a bit out of our wheelhouse where we're telling the school board where they should and shouldn't build. They have certain formula in place that sitting here is, for those of you who may not be aware, Elmvale District High School did suffer a few years ago where there was talk of closing it down, and through the efforts of the community raising about $250,000 and a commitment from Springwater Township to help rehabilitate the school and put some new facilities in place, and also bring the 7s and 8s from Huronia Centennial Elementary School in Elmvale over to augment the population of the school. I would have to say that if a school is built anywhere, it's built to accommodate the students in that jurisdiction. Unfortunately, I guess with Wasaga Beach, schools were in existence prior to Wasaga Beach really starting to take off and develop as more of a tourist area, for lack of a better term. My concern would be that putting this forward, and unfortunately I won't be able to support it for the reasons I'm stipulating, and I feel bad about that. I think every community should have a high school where it's warranted. I think what boils down to is when a high school is built in Wasaga Beach, it'll be built for the number of students that are going to be attending that school. So I don't think there's a real possibility that Elmvale District High School would not be affected by a high school being built in another neighboring municipality, because the students that may or may not be attending from Wasaga Beach or areas right close to Wasaga Beach, given Simcoe County Board of Education's lines for schools, they would certainly not be attending Elmvale District High School. So unfortunately, I won't be in a position to support this motion going forward.
Thank you very much. Councillor Stavron.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I just want a few comments, and obviously I've listened to these discussions for quite a few years. A couple little notes. It was announced from a Collingwood point of view that there's a private school, Pretty River Academy, will be ceasing high school operations this coming fall. So we see an influx of children coming from there who previously used that as an option. Secondly, my daughter, who is in the teaching in Collingwood, was discussing the other day that the kids who are coming in, not the transfers from other schools, but the new kids that are coming into their schools there is phenomenal. So we see growth, and I think we're underestimating what the growth will be in Collingwood, and as represented by what Wasaga had to say. A little comment in regards to Warden Clark's comment about after-school employment. I was fortunate for 32 years to be an employer, and I took great advantage of the co-op programs as well as using kids, young people, for after-school employment. My comment to that is where there's a will, there's a way for parents. They need the parental involvement, and a lot of kids do start driving at 17. We had kids from all communities, whether it be Wasaga, Collingwood, Stayner, throughout Clearview. So there's will, there's a way, and I keep an open mind when it comes to this. I will be supporting the option of a new school because it will help our community as well. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Snell, then Councillor Rawson.
Thank you, Chair Cox. I just wanted to point a couple mentions of clarification. In regards to Wasaga Beach and CCI, they are on the school board's 2023-2024 proposed capital priorities. The challenge that we're having is that in 2022, it was identified that 1,050 new students were having to be accommodated based on the insurgence and growth in the entire county. So this is not a situation unique to Wasaga Beach. The second challenge is that the Ministry of Education will typically do a capital call of 10 priorities on an annual basis. And in the last 3-4 years, it's been all over the place, with the last call being 5 capital priorities that had to be 3 older projects that had already been submitted and 2 new projects, leaving the school board scrambling last minute to try to put together business cases. I feel that this table, this House, has a responsibility to also lend our voice along with the school board in regards to the urgent need of schools to be prioritized throughout the county. Supporting a letter like this is not dictating to that board what to do with their dollars or where to put their business cases. It's just simply showing a unified voice for the needs of just one of our many communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Rawson.
Thank you, Chair Cox. I want to express my appreciation to Councillor Smith for his leadership on this file. We've been challenged from the province to build more communities, and really it's about increasing the housing stock. And people only come to that based on things we've talked about. We've talked about utilities, we've talked about roads, we've talked about water, we've talked about sewers. We've been delegated here by hospitals, and we put our support behind hospitals, which with fairness is not in our wheelhouse. Councillor Smith is just advocating for the health and well-being of his community, which is a healthy community. We lost a high school, and our community is growing. That destroys the fiber of the community. We lost a high school, and our community is growing. That destroys the fiber of the community, and the community can't grow. I think to Councillor Smith, he just wants to support his community. I think this is a key component. It's no different than active transportation, water, sewers, sidewalks, recreation centers, everything else that we're building. And I think this is great. And from a community that's lost a high school, I sympathize and agree, and will wholly support your motion.
Thank you. Councillor Duke.
Thank you. I absolutely sat here and listened to all the comments, and I certainly agree that Wasaga does deserve a high school, need high school. But I can't support this the way it's written because I think we need to actually write this. I would love to see a letter come from the warden talking about the needs in Simcoe County overall. We have many areas that are growing fast that need these schools. I can tell you right now that we're looking at 34 portables at a high school in Bradford. We're in trouble with high schools also. We're in trouble with our schools. I think it's a joint venture that we should be out here sharing and saying, listen, if we're going to grow, if Simcoe County is going to grow twice the rate of province of Ontario, you need to support our educational systems. You need to support our public health systems. We need to get the support from the province to do that for everyone. And we could itemize that this is some critical areas that we could put in that letter. So I believe that, yes, I fully agree. Our kids should be first and foremost. We should have high school in their communities to get their education and get their experience of high school. But I would like this motion to talk about Simcoe County as a whole, because we were all in trouble. All of the growing communities are in trouble when it comes to schools. We opened up a brand new school in Bradford, and there was portables on the first day of opening. So we're busting. Everybody's busting with schools, and I think it's something that we as Simcoe County should be over at the board offices talking to John Dance and his staff about how do we fund these schools in these growing communities. And we get to Minister Lecce to make them help us do that. So I can't support it the way it is. I wish we would possibly put this aside and come back with a motion that actually Simcoe County supports as a whole to push schools and high schools throughout our whole Simcoe County, because we're all in trouble. Thank you.
Councillor Norcross.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to touch on what Councillor Snell said, Banting High School was the oldest school in the system, and I think we've been advocating for 20 years for it to be rebuilt. I think we got funding, I don't know, was it a decade ago, Councillor Snell? Close to that?
You were approved in the 2 rounds of capital prior to the most recent, which should hopefully be coming out in August. And it took you 7 times at the table of asking on capital priorities to finally get approval.
You could have left the 7 times out, but anyhow. So where I'm going with this is that it's been decades in the making in replacing a school that desperately needed to be replaced. We're at the point now where they've narrowed it down to 2 or 3 sites. They don't even have the final site selected yet. So I think we need to be proactive. Our communities are growing with 1.5 million homes. And Councillor Smith, respectfully, it could be, even if it was approved today, it could take you 10 to 15 years before you'll even see that high school. So I think we really need to push the ball forward. I think we need to be on this and just make sure that the need is recognized and they're doing something about it, because it is a long, onerous process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Councillor Smith?
Thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing me another time to speak. I just want to touch on a few items. With respect to Elmville, I think Wasaga Beach has between 60 and 70 students that are attending Elmville today, and please don't hold me to this number exactly, but I think Elmville is somewhere at about 106% capacity, which means if you took 60 students out of there, you might be underutilized by maybe 20 students, which I highly doubt would be a crisis for the board. The other thing to note, I'm hearing these comments, and I respect these comments, but I'm hearing that I can't support this because I think it's out of our wheelhouse. In 2017, this House was unanimous in that support, and all we're doing is asking for a reaffirmation of what was asked for back then. The other thing I think is important to note is that just imagine yourself in your community if your children were being bused to another community to backfill that school to make it successful. And I were sitting here today saying, well, that's just kind of too bad. You've got to look after our kids in our community first by backfilling this school. I ask you to think about that, because this is not about economics. This is not about anything other than quality of life for our children in our community. I've heard comments about we need to support the whole county, and I couldn't agree more with Councillor Leduc on that. There's no doubt that whether it be schools, whether it be hospitals, whether it be any kind of public service, we need to do better. But when I hear this comment come from municipalities that already have schools, not one, but 2 or 3, I struggle with that because our students have 0. And if I seem overly passionate about this, it's because I am. You know, again, I'll just reiterate, we're not asking for anything over and above what most of you haven't had or do have in your community today for your children. So I ask that you don't think about, you know, whether we're in our wheelhouse or out of our wheelhouse. I'll end with this. In 2017, as I said earlier, the Ministry of Education listened to our plight for a high school. The Premier, at the time, Premier Wynne, listened to us. She then asked her minister to listen to us, Minister Mitzi Hunter at the time, and we were working with that ministry on assistance with this issue. And then there was a cabinet shuffle, and of course in Wasaga Beach we thought, oh lovely, we've got a cabinet shuffle, we're going to start over. And that didn't happen, and we were surprised at that, because Minister Hunter believed in it so strongly that she brought Minister Nadeau Harris up to speed on this. And a couple of weeks later, we had this unprecedented letter. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, the ministry does not get involved in these situations with school boards and municipalities. But in this case, they did. And that letter was clear that the ministry understood that there was an accommodation issue in Wasaga Beach. Hence, we're finally now getting started to build an elementary school that was approved 5 years ago. And they also indicated a need for a high school in our community. And the ministry built the case, in my opinion, for the Simcoe County District School Board by asking them to sit down with the municipality and to work with us to build a high school forthwith. And here we are 7 years later, and absolutely nothing's been done on that. We've been told that we may get a high school by 29-30. Well, if we wait till 2029 or 2030 to get on the list, that means by 35, 37, we might have a high school. So I just ask my friends in this House to reconsider and that, again, you think of the quality of life for the children of Wasaga Beach who just want the same quality of life that your children in your community have today. Thank you so much, Madam Chair.
Councillor Gordon, then Councillor Measures.
Thank you very much for you, Madam Chair. So full disclosure, you know, I lead a community that's been the beneficiary of or being lucky enough to keep, we have 2 high schools, and we also have the hospital, where my neighbor in Penetanguishene lost their high school and lost their hospital. Clearly that was a dollars and cents decision. It made more sense to centralize. And quite frankly, that's one of the things that this county does very effectively, and one of the reasons that I believe we're going to survive the weighing and measuring exercise, and I've been quite vocal about that as of late, because of the efficiencies of centralizing service delivery and concentrating the efforts, which does mean some travel. Link Bus is an example, right? We can't all have the exact same mirrored duplicate siloed services throughout our 16 municipalities, or there wouldn't be a reason for the county to exist. So the way I look at this is a symbolic, non-binding, document. And what we're being asked to vote on is symbolic and non-binding. And we've done that many times in this House for many different issues that aren't in our wheelhouse. So I have no problem supporting this specific ask, knowing that we'll likely see largely similar documents with different municipalities' names on it come before us. We have in the past and we will in the future. So I can support this in spirit, knowing that we're not compelling anybody to do anything and that the boards will do what the boards do and the province will do what the province does. But I just want to remind people when we talk about these things, we can't suck and blow. So we can't, raise up the fact that centralizing services and concentrating centers of excellence in one place rather than building replicated silos in all our communities. We can't say that that's a reason for the county to exist and why we should continue to exist in our current state, while also asking for replicated, mirrored service delivery in our communities. So I think we just need to be careful about our messaging to the province, because they will be watching this and they will look at this, and it will form part of their decision making about whether the concentration of our service delivery makes sense. When we argue that, some communities, every community needs to have a school, who can argue against that? It's like puppies and kittens. But when the dollars and cents and the rate of growth doesn't necessarily support that from the bean counters who are responsible for that service delivery, which isn't us, then, we need to remember, if we don't want them telling us how to do our job, we also need to think carefully about us telling them how to do theirs. So I'm fine with supporting this because it's symbolic and non-binding, and I'd encourage my peers to consider that as well, because the message that it's trying to extend is valid and it makes sense. The ultimate decision is for another body whether it actually makes sense with the dollar symbol in front of it. And we will just, keep on swimming as we do and deal with things that are in our wheelhouse. So I do appreciate all the thoughtful conversation I've heard today. It's actually a lot longer dialogue on this matter than I thought we'd have. But I'm pleased to support it for the reasons I've given, but also just cautious about, in this time of, being reviewed by the province and our viability, that we need to be careful that we are focusing on centralizing service delivery and how well we achieve that without the duplication and replication in all of our communities. Even though I'm the beneficiary of that in Midland. That's not lost on me, but I just wanted to be clear. Thank you.
Thank you. And last, Councillor Measures.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I would ask that you call the motion, and I would also ask for a recorded motion on this.
Thank you very much. And I would appreciate all your comments, and they all make sense. And I guess I can't say anything more, can I? Yes, sorry.
Through you, Madam Chair, just wanted to note that recorded votes are not permitted at Committee of the Whole. If there's a desire for a recorded vote, this item can be pulled later in the agenda when we recess back into Council to approve the performance management recommendations.
Okay. Is that all right with the rest of Council, or we'll all be here, right?
Perhaps we ask the mover and seconder, if that's comfortable.
I have a mover and a seconder for this motion, but for that motion, we'll need one. Would you like to move, Councillor Measures? To defer it to the council meeting so we can do a recorded vote, or are you okay the other way? Pull it at that time? Okay. So we'll just move on to the next? Okay. Take this vote. Okay. Go ahead.
I want to
You're
speak.
not supposed to speak.
Could I?
We're leaving this alone then.
Madam Chair, we take this vote now in Committee of the Whole, looking for a simple majority. If the motion carries, there will be an opportunity later in the agenda to pull it for a recorded vote if that's the desire of Council.
Is that okay? All right, I have a mover. I think it was Councillor Smith and Councillor, I can't even remember. Let's do Snell. Councillor Snell. Okay. I'll read this. Yes, just for this, right? Yes. We called the vote. I can't even speak. The Town of Wasaga Beach requests the following motion be considered by County Council. Whereas Simcoe County Council at its April 10th, 2018 meeting of Committee of the Whole endorsed recommendation CCW 13-18 as follows. That a letter of support from the Warden of Simcoe County to the Minister of Education in support of a new secondary school in the Town of Wasaga Beach, substantively in the form attached to Schedule 3 to item CCW 18 be endorsed. And whereas the Town of Wasaga Beach remains one of the fastest growing communities in Canada with a growth rate of 20.3% between 2016 and 2031. And whereas the Town of Wasaga Beach is projecting to grow from a current population of 25,000 to 50,000 within the 2051 planning horizon. And whereas the Town of Wasaga Beach currently buses over 800 secondary students out of our community daily during the school year to attend secondary schools in other communities. And whereas the 0 to 19 age cohort in Wasaga Beach has a growth rate of 16% and grew by 550 children to 3,890 during the 2016-2021 census period. And whereas the town of Wasaga Beach is currently constructing a significant community hub that includes a state-of-the-art library and fitness facility with Twin Pad Arena. And whereas the town of Wasaga Beach remains the largest community in Ontario without a high school. And therefore it be resolved that the County of Simcoe reaffirms its support for a high school in Wasaga Beach, whether it be a standalone high school or as part of a community hub. And further, that this motion of support be shared with the Simcoe County District School Board, the Simcoe County Catholic School Board, the Premier of Ontario, and the Minister of Education. All in favour? I'd say that's carried. Thank you. Okay. Councillor Dolan.
Thank you. I wanted to speak on another item on the consent list, if I could, and that would be item 9.2, which is the letter from AMO to Premier Ford.
Okay.
I just wanted to point it out to people that, as you know, all of us at our local level supported Bill 5, which was a private member's bill, asking similarly for similar options. That bill did die on the order paper. And so the AMO was asking for a government bill substantively the same as Bill 5 to be brought forward. Minister Clark did come to us for recommendation, come to the AMO board for recommendations on how this code of conduct could be applied. And you can click a link and get those recommendations in the letter. And I just wanted to provide an opportunity for people to bring this to their local level again for perhaps support of the government moving forward with this bill. Thank you.
Do we need to vote on that one? Oh, sorry. Councillor McClellan.
Thank you so much, through you, Chair. I just want to say that I fully support this letter, and the New Tecumseh Council did pass a motion in support of this at our last council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, sorry, Councillor Norcross.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Just to follow up with Councillor McClellan, could this be sent to all 60 member municipalities too, to keep it fresh in the forefront, so that there's suggestions in there, I think a boilerplate motion that could be used or put together just to help everybody move it along. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Clerk?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I'd take a motion that the letter be circulated to all member municipalities, if that's appropriate, with a seconder.
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. I'll take the vote on that, Madam Chair.
All in favor? Thank you. Do we need a motion for the other ones?
Yeah, Madam Chair, if there's no other discussion on 29.3, which is the insurance program report, or 29.4, the information library service status report, my recommendation would be to pass the recommendation there under consent, that the following consent items, with the exception of item 29.1 and 29.2, which we've dealt with, having been given due consideration, be received.
So can I have a mover and a seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Sanders, seconded by Councillor Measures. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to 30.1, fleet acquisition. Any questions or comments? Recommendation is that the item CCW 2023-147 dated June 27, 2023 regarding fleet acquisition be received, and that the subject to deliberations in the affirmative that additional funds required for the acquisition of the 2023 approved fleet vehicles as generally outlined in the subject report be approved. Mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Fryer, seconded by Councillor MacDonald. Question? Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. Through the chair, just a comment through to county staff. Is there a possibility with the overages of some of these purchases to see better pricing next year if we were able to defer a vehicle or two?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. We do take that into consideration when we look at the needs of vehicles. We have done that in the past. We did that last year. My understanding, but I'll ask our manager of fleet to confirm, is that these vehicles are absolutely needed this year. But if I could ask for comment, either through our director or manager. Thank you.
Through the chair, Your Worship, thank you for the question. Yes, typically these vehicles are absolutely needed, and in past we have deferred, which ends up resulting in a future cost, a cost increase that would have been avoided by purchasing in the year that we initially deemed it replaced.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Are there any other matters for consideration? Seeing none, back to the warden.
Thank you, Chair. Everybody's seen the closed session reports. Is there any need to go in camera to discuss them further? I'm not seeing any, so I will continue with the agenda. I was going to take a break if we want to go in camera, but if not, there's not much left. Now we'll just rise and report here shortly. So do you want me to read the motions for in camera now and then? Yeah. Okay, so I'll need a mover and a seconder that the Committee of the Whole resolve, oops, not that one. That we'll start with item 32.1, that the direction in camera regarding confidential item CCW 2023-171 dated June 27, 2023 regarding a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land be approved and voted upon in accordance with section 239(6)(b) of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended. It's not amended, was it? No. Oh, well, as amended, yes. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Fryer, second by Councillor Van Staveren. All in favor? That is carried. Item 32.2, the direction in camera regarding confidential item CCW 23-176 dated June 27, 2023 regarding a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land be approved and voted upon in accordance with section 239(6)(b) of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended. Moved by Councillor Miskimins, second by Councillor Greenlaw. All in favor? That is carried. And 32.3, the direction to staff in camera contained within confidential item CCW 2023-185 dated June 27, 2023 regarding a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by a municipality or local board be voted upon under section 239(6)(b) of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended. Moved by alternate Councillor Moore, second by Councillor Laux. All in favor? That is carried. Pardon me? Yes. So now I'd look for a motion that Committee of the Whole rise and report and resume sitting as council at 10:48. Moved by Councillor Fowler, second by Councillor Measures. All in favor? That is carried. So do I need a confirmation? Okay, so I will go over to Councillor Cox for the Committee of the Whole to start performance management, please.
Okay. We have a resolution that performance management recommendations contained within the Committee of the Whole report dated June 27, 2023 be approved. And do we put to pull the report, the letter 29.1 here? Okay. Councillor Measures.
Yes, I'd like to pull the item regarding the motion for the high school, and I would ask that that be voted on separately from the other items.
Thank you very much. Clerk?
So, Madam Chair, if there are no other items from performance management to be pulled, my recommendation would be to have a mover and a seconder for the resolution that the performance management recommendations, with the exception of item 29.1, which is the Wasaga Beach High School item, within the Committee of the Whole report dated June 27, 2023, be approved, and then we'll move to that motion separately.
Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Norris, second by Councillor Cabral. All in favor? Carried. I'll to the clerk.
Yeah, thank you very much. Is there any need from council for us to go over the motion again, or is council generally clear on what's being presented here? Okay, so we're back to 29-1 from today's Committee of the Whole meeting. It's the letter received from the Town of Wasaga Beach dated June 21st, 2023 regarding Town of Wasaga Beach High School. And it's that County of Simcoe Council reaffirms its support for a high school in Wasaga Beach, whether it be a standalone high school or as part of a community hub, and that the motion of support be shared with the Simcoe County District School Board, Simcoe County Catholic School Board, and the Premier of Ontario and the Minister of Education. And the idea there is that the warden would send a letter to that effect. So on that recorded vote requested by Councillor Measures, I'll ask each member in alphabetical order to indicate in favor or against, starting with Councillor Measures.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. I will vote in favor.
Councillor Miskimins.
In favor.
Councillor Norcross.
In favor.
Councillor Norris. Councillor Rawson.
In favor.
Councillor Sondu.
In favor.
Councillor Brian Smith.
In favor.
Alternate Councillor Sonder. Councillor Snell. In favor. Councillor Van Staveren.
In favor.
Councillor Walker. Councillor Anderson. In favor. Councillor Snutch.
In favor.
Councillor Burkett. In favor. Councillor Cabral.
Opposed.
Councillor Compton. Councillor Moore.
Opposed.
Councillor Cox.
In favor?
Councillor Dolan.
Opposed?
Councillor Evans. In favor. Councillor Fowler. In favor. Councillor Fryer. In favor. Councillor Gordon.
In favor.
Councillor Greenlaw.
In favor.
Councillor Hamlin.
Opposed.
Councillor Laux.
In favor.
Councillor LaRose. In favor. Councillor Lavoie.
In favor.
Councillor Leduc is absent. Councillor McDonald. In favor. Councillor McClellan.
In favor.
And finally, Your Worship.
In favor.
Your Worship, I have a vote of 25 in favor and 5 against.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll turn it over to the warden.
Now I will go to Human Services. Come on up, James. You're on deck. You weren't hiding from the vote, were you, James?
That. All right, sorry about that, Council. I was unavailable at that moment. So 34-2, Committee of Whole Report, Human Services. Would anybody like any of the issues pulled from Human Services report? All right, seeing none, I will move it. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McDonald, that the Human Services recommendation contained within the Committee of Whole report dated June 27, 2023 be approved, including the confidential item. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Back to you, Your Worship.
Thank you. And now Chair Dolan for corporate.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Measures that the Corporate Services recommendations contained within the Committee of the Whole report dated June 27, 2023 be approved, including the confidential items. All those in favor? Oh, no,
Yeah,
sorry,
everybody's heard the motion. Yeah, I know Judith always jumps a gun on that. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. So now consideration of bills. Councillor Norcross.
Thank you, Worship. Through you, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Burkett. that bills number 7018-23 and 7019-23 be enacted as bylaws of the County of Simcoe.
Everybody's heard the motion. All in favor? That is carried. So announcements, just a reminder that we do have a strategic session again down in the meeting room downstairs that we were in last week, last council meeting, and that'll be the final wrap up. This is the last council meeting as we do break for July. So we're not back till August 8th, and we only have one meeting in August because of the AMO conference. So I am suggesting at this point that we do the August 8th on Zoom. And that way, if councillors are away or decide to take a bit of time off, you can just join in online. And so we won't actually be back together in this house until September, but I do hope to see lots of you down at AMO this year where we can touch base again. The warden doesn't get a break during this time, so certainly if there's any events in your area or something going on, feel free to call, and I will do my best to get out there. So also, I think as many as us know, Canada Day is coming up Saturday, and many parades throughout the area. It's, oh, you're looking at me. I'm going to try and make the Washago one. Yes, I have a few parades in the morning. I think the weather's going to be good. With any luck, some of this rain will move up and help out our forest fighters up north. So I encourage everybody, whether you make it to a local event or not, please get out and try and enjoy the Canada Day's events. If you can't, as I said during Zoom, pick up the phone and call an old friend and wish them Canada Day. At the very least, greet a stranger and wish them happy Canada Day, because you'll find out in a wonderful country like Canada, there are no strangers. We share so much in common, which makes this such a beautiful place to live. So in advance, happy Canada Day to everybody here. Is there any more announcements at this time? Okay, I guess I was too long-winded. So I'll go to the confirmatory bylaw with Councillor Norcross.
Thanks, Your Worship. Through you, moved by myself, second by Councillor Rose, that bill number 7020-23 be enacted as a bylaw of the County of Simcoe.
Everybody's heard the motion. All in favor? That is carried. And now I'll look for adjournment, moved by Councillor Fowler, second by Councillor McDonald, that we now adjourn at 10:57 a.m. until, oh, that's it, 10:57 a.m. All in favor? That is carried. So we won't reconvene till, say, 11:15 downstairs. That'll give time for everybody to grab another coffee, and lunch will be provided down there during the...
All rise.